Do, 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 do. Hey, we're live. We're live, everybody. It's JJ Conway. I want to welcome you to our first broadcast of Black History Month, our first broadcast of February. Actually, did we do one this year? I think we did. I think we've done some this year. It's been kind of squirrely between all of the issues, the health, the homegoings, the ice storm, and all the things. But we are here, and I'm excited to be here with you for Fireside Chat. For those of you who are new to our broadcasts, this is our live recording of the Ladies of Wealth podcast. And the Ladies of Wealth podcast is then broken up. Wait, no, the recording is then broken up into multiple pieces and combined together to make the Ladies of Wealth podcast, which you can find at ladiesofwealth.com. If you have a business, if you have something great to share with hardworking women and a few good men who are trying to dump debt and build wealth, then go ahead and head to ladiesofwealth.com and you will be able to apply to be a guest, find past episodes, and even leave me your question anonymously, either through text or spoken, or you can also leave your contact information. Well, hello there. It's the banana that we've all come to love and know as Ultra Nene. What do you have for us today, Ultra Nene?
I figured,
Be loud.
I figured, since I always have it already drawn, I
Mhm.
figured today would be special. So I'm gonna draw it in front of your eye.
Okay, you already told them you already picked it.
I didn't.
You did. Ooh, who's that
And I
cool football? Okay.
no. Let's see what it says.
What does it say?
It says 34. Every touchdown is a proof of hard work.
Make sure you're in the small one. There you go. Every touchdown is a proof of hard work, huh? And what does that mean to you?
That means to me like every point you score,
Hmm.
that's proof of how hard you've worked to get that point.
Oh.
Like that's proof of how much you've done
Hmm.
to get to that point.
Hmm.
So that's a really good one.
It is a good one. Now I'm going to ask you something. I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that. Does that mean if you don't score that you haven't worked hard enough?
No,
Why not?
because sometimes you just go against a better team.
Mm.
Like if we go against Brownwood,
Oh, you mean for your league?
they lost the Super Bowl 28-0.
Yeah, that was pretty sad, wasn't it? Is that the same team that you went through against three times though, right? The
Yes.
first time you got totally dominated. The second time y'all scored on them. The
Score on them.
the only team to score on them all season long, and then you fell in the Super Bowl. Yep. Okay. And lost. All right. Well, all right. Thank you for being with us today.
I'm not done.
What do you mean you're not done? I got a show to do.
See more of me.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Get ready for Alternate's theme song. Chicken banana. 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 Chicken
That's enough.
banana. Chicken
That's
banana.
enough. That's enough.
Chicken
Katie,
banana.
I have a show to run. I have a show to run. Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Again, it's JJ Conway. I want to thank y'all for being on today. We have some serious questions to talk about as part of our fireside chat. Now, if you have a question you want to ask, make sure you drop it in the chat so I will know to answer your question. All right. So for now, we are going to go ahead. Let's see. I think I already covered. Did I cover announcements? I think I did. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to get right into our questions. Let me call up the first question, which I kind of already know off the top of my head, because these are some doozies today, y'all. And I love it. I love it. Some of these aren't necessarily 100% aligned with wealth building, but I think you're going to really enjoy them. And the thing is, for me, anything that impacts our emotional state impacts our wealth. Okay. And so we're going to answer some questions, including we're going to answer about the boyfriend who wants a church wedding, but not a legal wedding. We're going to talk about the lady who gave up everything to move and care for her parents, but they won't help with her new baby. And then we're going to answer a question about college funding and the difference between 529 prepaid plan and a Coverdell, and that's what they asked about. But I'm gonna also add in a Utma, I don't know how you say it, uniform gifts to your kids. I don't remember what the actual acronym is. It's a gift for your kids. Okay, so we're gonna talk about those. We're gonna talk about those. But real quick, I also, if you if you are curious about my shirt, I'm going to talk about what this shirt represents at the end. We're going to do a little bit of a Black History Month spotlight, and we're going to talk about Girl Trek. Okay. So, real quick, let me pull up um, the actual question here. Should have had that before we got on here. Okay. So, what she's asking is, um, oh, this breaks my heart too. This really does break my heart. Okay, my boyfriend wants a church wedding, but not a legal wedding. Okay, and so I'm going to I'm gonna skip some of the particulars, okay? But the bottom line, and this is so hilarious to me because, it's not hilarious. It's not hilarious. It's not hilarious. I don't mean to say it's hilarious. It's not. It's horrible. It's horrible. Okay. So if you're in this situation, just know right now, my take is it's horrible. If you are dating somebody, usually what happens is they don't want to get married, period. You want to get married, they don't. They pretend they want to get married so they can get you in. But then as time goes on, 1 year turns to 5 years, turns to 10 years, you begin to realize these people don't want to get married. And if I want to get married, I got to move on and find somebody who does because I'm not getting any younger. Okay. And so, and that's the situation that we normally have. But in this one, the individual has the boyfriend that's like, I want to go and have a church wedding with the big dress and the big party and all that stuff, but I don't want to have the legal wedding. And so, I'm going to be upfront with y'all. When I first saw that, I said, uh-oh, this guy already married. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about this from a financial standpoint. But first, let's talk about some reasons why you might be dating somebody who wants to have the big party, the big display, but they don't want to actually go down to the courthouse, sign the marriage license, and be officially married. Because, hold on, let me mute real quick. Now, in some places that you live, you don't have to be legal to be considered married, right? Like in some places you live, there's common law marriage where you live with them long enough, and it can be either 7 years to 10 years to 20 years. I think in some parts of Canada it's like 3 years. Different parts of the world have different standards on that. And if you live with somebody long enough, then for the purposes of the law and inheritance and things like that, you could be considered married. But that's not the same as actually being married. So if that's important to you to have things to pass on to heirs, or if it's important to you that your children have a legacy with their father or mother, in whichever situation you're in, you want to make sure you lock that down with paperwork. Okay, and so, what a lot of people who've never been married before don't realize is that you don't just go down to the street and go down to the Justice of the Peace and show up on the courthouse steps and get married. Okay. Now, if you're in Vegas, you do, but there is still a little bit of a process there. Okay. It's a little easier in Vegas and some places like that, but there's still a process. I know because I was going to get married in Vegas when I get remarried when I got married the second time. So there's still a process. You don't just show up drunk and get married. It's not like that anymore. So if somebody is telling you they don't want to get married through the legal position, not legal position, they don't want to get married through the legal system. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but chances are they're not on the up and up. Okay, so let's look at some of the reasons why somebody might say something like that. Okay, especially if this person wants to have you stay home and rear the children, or if this person wants you all to buy property and things like that together, like you're going to be commingled on paper in other areas, but you're not going to be commingled on paper in the one that really matters when it comes to divorce, death of a spouse, even sickness of a spouse. Now, look, I know it sounds pessimistic for me to be like, you need to lock that stuff down. So if he leaves you or cheats on you, you have legal recourse, right? But that's not the only reason that marriage protects you. Whether you're a man or a woman, marriage protects you in certain ways because if he goes into the hospital, if he goes into the hospital, they don't have to recognize you as being able to be there and be in there in the ICU and all that stuff unless you're married. Okay. Now they could create paperwork and they can give you durable power of attorney and power of attorney and all those things, living will, all those things. There's nuances. We talked about that on a previous podcast, the differences between those things, right? They could do that. But if they're not willing to, get married, I wonder if they really want to go to a lawyer to do that. Okay. So, okay, so it's not just pessimism about divorce, but there are other legit ups and downs, ebbs and flows of life where it is very helpful that if you're going to be a life partner with somebody, that you marry them. Okay. And I understand there are people who don't want to get married. I remember somebody that I worked with one time. She I don't know how I feel about this. I'm just saying I understand. Okay. Me understanding somebody's situation does not mean I agree with their decisions. Okay. I just saying I understand because I knew this person who was receiving like $3,000 or $4,000 a month in alimony because her ex-husband had brought her here from a third world country and then he divorced her and she didn't have any skills and she couldn't hold a job and it took her a long time to be able to get to hold a very low level job, which is where I met her. And she was dating somebody, but they weren't going to get married because if they got married they would lose that money. Now if I'm the ex-husband, I'm a little perturbed about that, like you're having your cake and eat it too. But I'm just saying there are some reasons why people don't want to get married that aren't just I want to defraud you. Okay. That said, in this case, let me tell you one of the reasons why. And again, I'm going to try not to go too much into this because this was something that was recent. A lot of times when somebody forwards me a question, like it was a friend of a friend or something like that, normally I age those a little bit. Okay. But this one's fairly recent and I don't want somebody's bestie to get like outed because I gave too many details on their friend's situation. Uh, so in this case, the prospective husband is like, this will save so much money in taxes. And I'm like, have you ever heard of the single tax? Like there are people groups that are fighting for the right to be married and considered married under tax law because they feel it's unfair that our current established marriages in most parts of the United States at least are between a man and a woman. And they're like, we want the same tax benefits. We've been together for 12 years. We want the same tax benefits as everybody else. And you find that you don't want to file taxes with your partner. Red flag, red flag, red flag. I'm sure the reason that man doesn't want to file taxes with this young lady is because he don't want her to know what he's got. Okay. Another reason he probably don't want to. Okay, wait. Let me do one thing at a time. One thing at a time, because I'm not down there yet. Okay. So well, I already started saying it. I might as well go ahead and say it. My first my first my first red flag with this when I saw the taxes thing is he's married and he don't want you to see his taxes. He don't want it to be researched in the system to find out that he's married. He got him a whole nother family somewhere else in some other state, in some other country, in some other situation. And he is trying to pull one over on his future fiance. Just the fact that he says, or I think it's better for us taxes. We'll save so much money in taxes. And then turns around and says, and I do want you to be a stay-at-home mom. You said you always wanted to do that, and I can make sure that happens. Red flag, red flag, red flag, all over. You know what? I should get a red flag. I've got a it's buried because I wasn't planning on using it today. I've got a penalty flag, but I need a red flag. I need a red card. Boom, you're out. You're out, you know? Um, okay. So my thinking My thinking is he's probably got a family somewhere else, okay? Or the next thing I thought is that if he applies for marriage, maybe he isn't married right now, but he was married and he hasn't told you that. Okay. Okay. So that's another reason why somebody might want to do this. Okay. Now, the next thing that I want you to think about in this situation, okay, the next thing you might want to think about in the situation is that he's got some things in his record. He's got some things in his record that are not savory. And when you go apply for a marriage license, that's going to trigger some things. Okay. I don't know if I need to admit this in public, but the government already knows. I have some people in my background who have a little bit of unsavory pasts. And I have people in my family that have some unsavory pasts. And made my security clearance back when I was in the Air Force, made my security clearance investigations take a long time. And guess what people like to do? They like to hide something. And guess what happens if you are a felon and you don't turn yourself in on your regular intervals to your parole officer, or if you're supposed to be limited to a certain geographic region and you don't do that, or if you are a registered sex offender, but you decide not to register when you move somewhere else, okay? These things all could pop up when he goes in to get application for a marriage license, okay? And so to me, the biggest thing, especially when they mention being a stay-at-home mom, to me, the biggest thing that I think is happening here, if he's not married to somebody else, is probably that he just wants to give her all that he thinks she needs to basically become his house manager, um, for the sake of little ears, intimate partner, child rearer, and take care of everything else. Okay, that's what it sounds like. And then once she's trapped and unable to leave, this is where I could admit that I might be a little biased here based on my experience and the experience of many women I know. Once she's trapped in that situation, now the abuse can come. And we'll talk more about financial abuse when we get into Women's History Month next month. But the reality is, for a lot of women, they did not see the financial abuse coming. They did not see the financial abuse coming because it doesn't show up like that. Like, a person who's going to abuse you financially doesn't just show up on date one and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be super nice to you for the next 2 or 3 months. I'm going to make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. I'm going to make you feel like you're so super special. And I'm going to make you feel like nobody else has ever understood me like you do. You must be my soulmate. We shouldn't waste any time. We've been looking for each other all these years. Let's jump in and move in together. Let's jump in and get married quick. Let's jump in and have kids quick. And then as soon as you are attached, or as soon as she is attached, and sometimes it's he that is attached, now the abuse starts. And when the abuse starts, it's a situation of, well, I didn't think that was the real him. I didn't think that was the real her, because the person who courted me was the real him. The person I went out with for 4, 5, 6 months was the real her. No, what you went out with and during that time was a facade. And as soon as they feel like you are sufficiently locked down where it's hard for you to extricate yourself, then the abuse begins. And so that was my big concern when I read this. I did think that, because I've heard of this. Being in the military, I've heard of this where people have had multiple families that didn't know about each other. And y'all, I was TDY and I flew home one time and I met this guy on the plane, and my goodness, we hit it off. We hit it off. We had such a great time. And of course, back then I was single. I looked down to see if there was any ring. Not only was there no ring, there wasn't even one of them ring shadows. You know how when people who are married want to stray, they take off their ring and you got the light skin piece where your wedding band used to be because it's been shaded, it's been shielded from the sun. He didn't even have that. So I was when I was single, I would always look and make sure there's no evidence of a ring that used to be there yesterday and isn't there today, right? Y'all, he flirted with me, and it was one of those long trips. I think we were coming from overseas or something like that, but it was one of those long trips. We were fellowshipping. We were talking, we were hitting it off, boom, boom, boom. I mean, it had been so rare since I met anybody that I could really converse on that level. Y'all, I was excited. Now, he dampened my excitement. He slowed my roll as we got ready to land, and he said, well, I hate to break this to you, but I'm enlisted and I'm getting ready to retire in about 6 months. So, I hope it's okay if I look you up, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Y'all, we get off the plane. I realize that I never got his contact information. Okay. And I really only had a first name. I didn't even have his whole name. Right. So I go to the baggage claim and I go to look for him. And there he is at the baggage claim, y'all, with the biggest wedding ring I have ever seen. It was like, you ever see one of those big, um, the it's called a nut. Okay, I have to be careful. I got a fourth grader boy in the room. It's called a nut. You put it on the bolt, right? It was, wait, let me see if I can do this. It was about that big on his finger. It covered the whole joint between the bottom of his finger and the knuckle. Okay, that's how big it was. Like one of them platinum style, tarnished, dark tarnished, not black metal, but like it's like a antique silver or a platinum style wedding band. It was the biggest wedding band I had ever seen. And I thought to myself, that man has on the biggest wedding band I've ever seen. Let me see what his family looks like. And sure enough, his family come out. He has some older kids, like 10, who had missed dad. For him to have been in that relationship that long and not have a wedding band thing, maybe he worked in maintenance or something where they don't wear their wedding bands that often. But for you to not have any shame or any indication that you were married with kids, y'all, some people, they know exactly what they're doing and they're good at it too. That's why you can't be too careful. You got to look for the red flags. And in this case, my red flags, I did. My first thought was, I wonder if he doesn't want to get married because he doesn't want her to find out that he's got another family somewhere. He's already married to somebody else, and he don't want to divorce her. Right? That was my first thought, and then my second thought was, or this man is financially abusive. Okay, so now if you're in a situation like this, what do you do? Okay, what do you do? Because there's just so few good outcomes. Like, what's another one? I think there's what's another one? Sometimes people don't get married because they want the woman to get the benefits. They want to get certain benefits. And I know we are not going to feed into the stereotype that every single mama is a welfare mama. Okay, most of the people that were getting benefits when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in $800,000 of debt. They were hardworking people who were just struggling to make it. Okay, so we're not going to go down that road today. But there are people out there that have this, welfare queen myth, and they think, oh, if we just play it up, her parents will be satisfied, she'll be satisfied, and she'll get free money, and that's less work I have to do. You don't want somebody who just wants to put in the minimum effort. Okay, you don't. Okay. And so, because people are something like let's say it's not financial abuse. Let's say he's not married to somebody else. Let's say he's not a felon or some other legal bad thing that he's trying to hide, right? Let's just say he's not cheating. Okay. Let's say he's just risk averse and he don't want to lose the girl, right? What do you really want somebody who's going to only put in the bare minimum, who's just going to placate you enough? I'm gonna challenge this problem that we're having in society. People are always been saying, well, there's not enough good men, there's not enough good men, there's not enough good men. There are good men out there, but no matter what generation we're in, it seems like there's never enough good men. Back when I was younger, it's because men were holding women down and abusing them and not letting them succeed, and they wouldn't let them have careers. And then when I became a young woman, now, it was common, you didn't just go to college to get your MRS degree, although I went to school with several women at the Air Force Academy who were there for their MRS degree. That was still a thing, but it was going out of fashion. But now you have the male loneliness epidemic where all these men apparently can't find women because women want too much out of their man. I mean, every generation has its struggles and it just takes a different shape. And what's taking a different shape isn't a real problem. It's people on both sides of the fence not taking accountability for what it is they want and what it is they're willing to do in a partnership. And a partnership only works if both people are willing to act as partners, which means I'm here for you, you're here for me, and we're in this thing together. Okay. So I'm a caution this young lady. You do not want a partner who puts out the bare minimum. Okay. You want a fake church. He wants a fake church wedding. He wants to be a fake husband. Who wants a fake husband? Okay? Who wants a fake husband? Who wants to be pretend married to somebody who's putting all the onus on you to give up your career and do all the things, but yet he has any license he wants to walk away whenever he feels like it? When you have 3 kids and a mortgage you can't pay, you're going to regret that. I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. Okay? Don't do it. You If he is not going to commit to you on paper, I know people don't like to hear this. I know it's old fashioned, but you know what? I'm a pastor. You come on my channel, you're going to get faith and family with finance. You're not going to just make money at any cost. Okay. You got somebody in your life that doesn't want to commit to you with paperwork and marriage and committing themselves, even if you're not a person of faith, committing yourself legally. I would recommend you don't have children with that person. I would recommend you don't commingle funds with that person. I would recommend you don't buy a house with that person. I would recommend you don't buy a car with that person. Now, if they want to buy you a car, put your name on it, that's different. But I would keep those lines very separate. Okay. And I am old fashioned enough to say that I wouldn't even recommend living with that person. Okay. And so now that said, I think it would be hard to do what he really wants to do unless y'all found a fake pastor, because very few churches are going to want to do that. I know mine wouldn't do that because when we do a wedding, you have to sign the marriage paperwork. Okay, so I'm giving you all these things. My biggest thing to the young lady in this situation and her friend who sent me this is you want to get yourself out of that situation as quickly as you can. Even if this guy is well intentioned but just foolish, because he might be well intentioned, but he might be 22, 23. I don't have the ages of who these people are, but they sound kind of young. Okay, he might be 22 or 23. Now, wait a second. If she's 22 or 23 and he's 35, boom, 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 another red flag. Okay, just cut it off. Okay, but if you think he might honestly be well intentioned but just ill informed or a little foolish, or he's read too many alpha male websites or something like that, I'm not saying kick him to the curb right away, but I would say put some boundaries in place. If you're living together, move out. If you're commingled funds, stop it. If you're doing things that would lead to children, protect yourself and perhaps back off a little bit because you don't want a fake marriage. You don't want a fake husband. Okay. Now, those are my recommendations. And some of those things are harder said than, or some of those things are easier said than done, but you can start taking action today. And the whole thing about taking action is even when it takes a while for you to actually do the things you need to do, just the fact that you have an action plan helps you have more confidence and helps you have more strength and helps you hold your head up higher and helps you have much more gumption in your life. And that spills over your energy, the energy that it brings to have a plan for your future spills over into the rest of your life. And the next thing you know, he's feeling that energy. Other people around you are feeling that energy. And then now they are approaching you differently. And so you might actually find that when you start walking in the energy of I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to protect my future, and my future doesn't include a fake husband, even if you're on the same lease and it's 6 months before you can get out of it, and you're starting to save up your money and you're starting to look for other places, you're starting to reach out and find out if you can room with somebody, rent a room, or go move back home or whatever it is. Once that energy comes out, you might find that he decides to move on to somebody who's an easier target. Because I don't see any good that comes out of this situation, and I would advise you to get out of it sooner rather than later. All right, all right. I want to appreciate those of you who've been on. We are going to cover our next question. I am really surprised that we are at 29 minutes. I know my son came on. Oh, wait, hold on, hold on. We got some comments up in here. Okay. Yes, that's what I was saying. I think he's married somewhere else. Married, married. Financial abuse and you know it, and see, the problem is, this is the thing that bothers me when we have these conversations, and we're going to have a lot of these conversations during Women's History Month. When we have these conversations, you get people in multiple camps, And the two most common camps are the people that have never been through it. And they're like, what's your problem? What's your problem? Well, how dumb can you be? How could you get, oh, how could that happen to you? How could you let that happen? Even high-powered women, high-powered men find themselves sucked into these situations. And once they realize what's going on, then it's too late to get out. If you haven't, go and take a look at my talk with HG Tudor about why high-powered women get ensnared by narcissists. Excuse me. We also have one coming out. I'm trying to get it out to be on Valentine's Day. I know that is so um ironic, but I was like, you know what? We need a juice with JJ. We need something controversial. I think we're gonna put his the financial ramifications of being ensnared with a narcissist. I think we're gonna try to release that on Valentine's Day. Don't hold me to that though, just in case. Because there's been so much going on. But the thing is people. So you got one camp of people who are like, that's ridiculous. How could that ever happen? And anytime the person who is a victim of financial abuse or emotional abuse or physical abuse or all the forms of abuse, it's their fault. It's their fault. And then you have the people on the other side who've been through it, or they know somebody who's been through it, or they're empathetic enough to be like, you know what, that's really sad and unfortunate, and I don't know how he got there, I don't know how she got there, but oh my goodness, you can tell the same story to those two groups, and the one group's going to react with condescension and disdain, and the other group's going to be like, I've been there, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so if you're in the group that's already scoffing when I make those kinds of comments, I'm going to encourage you, take some time and do some research. Smart people get ensnared in abusive relationships. Accomplished people get ensnared in abusive relationships. Educated people with multiple letters behind their name get ensnared in abusive relationships. CEOs, sports stars, all kinds of people get ensnared in abusive relationships. Okay. Ooh, okay. I was not planning on saying all that, but hey, there we go. There we go. And it's weird because I know several women who got ensnared in abusive relationships, and they were all strong, independent women outside the home. And one guy, I know one guy. Okay. All right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna move on. If you are watching me live, then I appreciate you watching me live. We are going to, that's going to be probably one podcast episode there, one podcast episode on one question. I really am, I promise y'all, I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get down to where each segment is like 7 to 10 minutes. I'm going to get there one day. Hey, at least one question was just one episode this time. But if you are listening to me as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast, then I want to welcome you back for our next episode where we are going to talk about the question I'm about to answer, which is I gave everything up to move and care for the baby, care for my parents, but they won't help with the baby. Can I say that again, y'all? Please indulge me because I'm trying to get to where we can extract these from the recordings and not take so much editing. Okay. So what we're going to talk about next, what we're going to talk about now is a person who gave up everything to go take care of their parents, but now their parents don't want to help with the baby. And they're considering should they move back to where they're from and have a support system, or should they just kind of tough it out? Okay. Because they don't want to risk losing their inheritance. All right. Now, if you are listening to me, as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast, I want to encourage you to come out and join us on Thursday nights. We have a good old time, and I usually stay on. I will tonight. I usually stay on till the last question is answered. So if you've got a money question, go ahead and drop it in the comments so I can get to it. Now, don't you drop them in the comments. We had this happen a couple times when I go to close live stream. And then like 3 comments come in, and I'm like, I can't do anything with that. I've already clicked the click. I've already clicked it. It's gone. And I'm going to try to remember. But if you don't put it in ladiesofwealth.com, I'm not going to remember that next week. I'm just going to be real with you. You got to put it in the system, or you got to do it earlier in the podcast. Okay. All right. So Thursday nights live, we do every first Thursday is Fireside Chat, where we answer your money questions with style and grace. Our second Thursdays. Did I say Tuesday? Oh my goodness. All right, forget it. I can't be correct today. I don't know what it is. It's the enemy. Satan, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. All right. Every second Thursday, let me say that again. Every first Thursday is our Fireside Chat where we answer your money questions with style and grace. Every second Thursday is our seven-figure business building. So it teaches you tools to build multiple streams of income or improve the business you already have. Our third Thursdays is real estate, my first love when it comes to making money and building wealth. And then our fourth Thursdays is the empowered entrepreneur, how to be the person that attracts what you want into your life. And so those are our regularly scheduled classes. Fifth Thursdays are our wild card. They're usually replays where I go spend more time with my family, but we just play those by ear. Okay. So our question right now, let me go ahead and read this to you. I gave up everything to move and care for my parents, but they won't help with the baby. Should I risk losing my inheritance and leave? Ooh, y'all, this is a toughie. This is a toughie. This is a toughie. Okay, I'm gonna pause. I know my editors are gonna be so frustrated with me because I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna need you to append this to the last discussion because this is a good one. I love you, girl. I do love you. I really do. The person trying to figure out how to get out without anyone finding out, which is another issue heavily strained because of brokenness from the abuse. They are fully able, they are fully able to think like they need to get out. Okay, I they are fully able. Okay, so I think I know where you're going with this. If I'm wrong, go ahead and come back because we're going to add this to the previous one. Okay, about when we're talking about the possibility of abuse. So this is one of the biggest things because a lot of people who get stuck in these abusive situations, they they have relationship equity or they have relationship capital or reputation capital. They have reputation capital, and so for them to go get help, to go to a battered women's shelter or go to a rescue or to go to something like that to get away, it's very difficult on them personally, and then they feel like they have to do it all themselves. Okay, and so not only, okay, I see where you're going there. Not only not only is it that they have this situation, especially the more higher powered you are, the harder it is to ask for help. But by time you get to this point where you need to get out of there, you have been conditioned. You have been conditioned to accept the abuse. You have been conditioned to accept it as normal. I remember a time in my life where I was in an abusive situation and I went to counseling for it, which I really didn't want to do at the time because I didn't believe that people who were saved back then, I didn't believe that they needed to go to counseling. And I know that's not true anymore, but at the time, that's just kind of how I felt. So I was real embarrassed, but kind of needed something. I needed to talk to somebody, right? And the guy asked me, he said, how, how did you, how did you get to the point where you accepted this as normal? And I was like, I don't know. No, that's he said, how did you live like this? And I don't know. It just one day led to the next, and this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And it just each thing that happened just eventually became normal. There wasn't anything I could do about it. And there was something I could do about it, but the awareness didn't even enter my mind. Okay. And so I have a lot of love and a lot of concern for people who are entrapped, especially in financial abuse. And that's why we have a class coming up that'll start in a 3 or 4 weeks of breaking free from financial abuse. I'm not advertising it today because I don't have all the things ready for the next cohort, but it's called Breaking Free from Financial Abuse. We look at what financial abuse is and we look at what you can do to get yourself out. Sometimes we need somebody else to come and tell us this is not right. This is abuse. And even then, we need to hear it multiple times. And if you've got a friend who's trapped in the throes of abuse, then what I need you to do is to understand that you just saying, I think your husband or your wife is abusive, that usually doesn't do it because that person has already been conditioned that they are the problem. They have already been conditioned that they are the problem. That person who's abusive in their life has taken some weakness or some insecurity and they have played it up and tossed it up to the point where that person no longer feels like they're worthy of anything else. And they may play big outside the home, but when they come home, that's where the truth is told. And so it's important to ask gentle questions. It's important to be a lifeline when you can be. And it's important to help slowly nudge without directing and making that person even feel worse about themselves because they already feel like they're dumb. They already feel like they're hopeless. They already feel like they have nowhere else to go. They already feel like they're not, they don't even deserve your friendship. Okay. They already feel all these bad things about themselves because that's what their abuser has poured into them over all the years. And they're already searching back for the love and the attention that they got in those first, high emotion, almost like a drug. It's almost like a drug. Okay. I know I'm talking about this too long, but I just don't want to see anybody continue hurting that doesn't need to continue hurting. But I think a lot of times in our efforts to help, we actually make things worse. And so that's what we're going to be talking about more in another show. But right now, let me get back to the question at hand. Ooh, y'all. Oh, I can say so much on that, but again, I'm not going to because that this is not an abuse call. But somebody needed to hear that, I'm sure. And I hope that you will heed our words. We bounce things off of people. If you have to go anonymous and go on some of these forums to do so, find out that what's in your life is not normal, and then let other people be the strength that you need, the strength that you don't have to be able to try to get out. And if your friend is in this, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a counselor. I don't play one on TV, but I just as somebody who's been there, who's been in, a series of unfortunate situations, that you really just be there for that person and let them know that you're a safe landing place. If they ever need to come running, you got a space on your couch. You've got food in the fridge. All right. Okay. All right. I gave up everything to move and care for my parents, but they won't help with the baby. Should I risk losing my inheritance and leave? Okay. I think what's happening here, I think what's happening here, it sounds like it sounds like a story I've heard all too many times, and it breaks my heart because usually what happens is the person who's getting messed over is the person who comes to me and asks for help for financial planning because of the situation. Oh, I'm all fuzzy. Well, have I been fuzzy this whole time? Oh dear. Well, let's see if we can fix that. Let me scoot back if I can. I'll scoot that forward, maybe. Will that help? That's not helping. Okay. Um, what usually happens in situations similar to this is when clients come to me and then they have quit their job and moved to another state to go back home and take care of their aging mom or take care of their aging dad. And they give up their career and they go and do all the things to help them with their medical appointments and assisted care that really should be provided by somebody else. And they're promised you'll have the house, have this, or I'll give you the business, or blah 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 blah. And then dad dies, mama dies, and guess what? They're not going to do that. They don't give the house or anything to the nice kid. They fall victim to the bully kids who demand that they get everything or get most of it, who then bully the nice kid out of the inheritance or the business or the house or fill in the blank. And the nice kid comes to me and says, "Can you do something?" And I'm like, I can't do much at this point. We can look at the documents. You can pay the money to go get, go get your own lawyer and have the challenge, to have the final stuff challenged. You can challenge a will, by the way. Um, but it's usually unsuccessful in situations like this because the person who gave up everything has such a tender heart and such a caring personality and such a demeanor that does not lend itself to being as aggressive as is needed to solve these problems. I hope I'm saying that delicately because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want you to feel like you got to be a mean person to do well in life. Okay. If you're not a mean person and you're not a super aggressive, gonna stick it to my sister and brothers no matter what, or let me, or if you're the person that feels like standing your ground and asserting yourself is being mean, you're not wrong to assert yourself, but you're worried that if you do assert yourself, your sister or your brother or your cousins or your uncle or your auntie or whoever is not going to invite you back for Thanksgiving dinner. And to you, that relationship is more important than the house that you were promised. Okay. If you're that kind of personality, Your personality does not lend itself to taking care of this business. And that's why everybody's steamrolling over you. And that's probably why, if I may, that's probably why, that's probably why your parents didn't go to the others when they needed help. They went to you because you were kind and you were caring and you were going to put up with a whole lot of their foolishness. So, in that situation, that this person, I imagine that this person was following down that timeline. And anytime one of my financial planning clients says, I'm thinking of moving, I'm thinking of doing this for my parents or anything that causes them to give up what's best for their financial future. And I know, I'm not the judge. I'm not the judge of what's best for your financial future. I can look at the numbers, I can look at your goals, and I can say, for what you want to do for your family, boom, 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 boom. You know, I can advise you that if you were my client, because I am a financial planner, but I'm not your financial planner until you engage me in a client planner relationship. If you are my client, I can advise you. You have children. If you're going to want to send them to college, you probably need to set aside some money. You probably need to get out of debt. You probably need to set up something for your retirement, and you probably need to have something to take care of you in your mature years because you can't count on your kids to do that. Okay? Not you can't count on your. I mean, one way or another, we're gonna be taken care of. But I don't want to be eating dog food in my mature years. We say it like that. I don't want to be eating dog food. I want to be well taken care of. And so when I look at my competing goals of the things that I want out of my life, giving up my livelihood, giving up caring for my own children, giving up fill in the blank that is needed for my family's financial future plan is not equitable to me giving all that up to take you to your doctor's appointments. You can hire somebody to take you to your doctor's appointments. You can find somebody to take you to your doctor's appointments. You can move closer to the hospital. That's kind of harsh. That is kind of harsh. Some of us have great relationships with our parents. I like to think that my children have a great relationship with me. I work very hard at being a good mom. I know I make some mistakes and I know sometimes I can be overbearing, but I work very, very hard at meeting my children where they are. We're trying very hard to understand their equities, trying to build them a relationship around the things that they like, even if I don't like them, trying to understand where they come from, playing with them, being at their events, showing up when they need me, not doing things to intentionally hurt them. Like I work. To me, being a good parent is work. And it's not always rainbows and unicorns. I mean, even if you're not cleaning up spit up and poop, you still have the situations where your kids like these things and you like those things. And I am somebody who prefers peace and quiet in my household, and I got two highly extroverted, highly friendly, highly active boys. So guess what mama had to learn how to do? If I wanted a relationship with those children, then I needed to make sure that I meet them where they are, not expect somebody who's 10 or somebody who's 12 or somebody who's 5 to come up to the level where I am. Okay? And so why am I saying that to you? I'm saying I have worked very hard to have a good relationship with my family and teach them to take care of their equities and take care of their family, take care of their parents and things like that. But somebody said the other day, they say, you have unconditional love for your kids. And I'm like, I didn't say it because I know the person was going through some things at the time, but I thought to myself, I didn't teach my kids unconditional love. Now, I taught them to love like the Lord loves, and the Lord does offer his love unconditionally. But see, when other people say love, what they really mean is do whatever I need you to do or whatever I want you to do. That's not love. See, unconditional love doesn't mean I'm going to treat you bad and you still have to take good care of me. Unconditional love doesn't mean I'm going to purposely hurt you and then expect you to do my bidding. So when I read this question about this person who gave up everything to move and care for their parents, I'm thinking, you know what? That sounds like parents who didn't really care about their kid. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I care enough about my children that I am working on a plan that they're not going to be saddled with me in their middle years. Now, it might happen. We can't control the future. The scripture even says sometimes finances fly away as eagles. You can't control the future. You don't know that your hard work and efforts are going to all pay off, but Most of the time, scripture also shows that diligence and frugality pay off with a harvest later on in life. Okay, spend less than you make and invest the rest. I had one child at 30 and I had the other one at 40. When my 40-year-old, I mean, when my 10-year-old is 20 and 30 and starting his family. When he's starting his family, he's 30 years old. He's starting to climb in his career. He's got a wife and some young kids, right? I will be 70. I do not want that child saddled down with having to take mama to all her doctor's appointments and stuff. So I am planning my life to make sure that I am as little of a burden on my children as I need to be. And I'm trying to plan my life to be as healthy as I can because I already done promised him I'm gonna be here till he's 50. And he's like, well, mom, that means you're gonna be here till 90. I'm like, I'm working on it. I'm working on getting my health back together. Well, when it comes to finances, I find that people who grow up in situations where mom sacrificed everything for you and sacrificed everything for her parents, now she expects you to sacrifice everything for her. That's not how it should work. Oh, I can't believe you said that. Yes, I said that. Now, if your mama was good to you and she did everything she could for you and you want to honor her and you have it to honor, then she deserves everything that you can give. But don't tell me you're going to honor mom and take care of mom and your children are going hungry. Don't tell me you're going to honor mom and take care of your mom and you don't have enough to eat. Don't tell me you're going to honor mom and take care of mom who should have provided for her own retirement if possible, and you don't have enough to put new tires on your car when the tire blows. I'm not saying we don't love mama. I'm not saying we don't help mama. But I'm saying you have your own family. You got to take care of that family first. And when I read something like this, I read somebody who has been, I won't say conned, I won't say hoodwinked, I won't say, you know, manipulated, although I feel all those things. I'll say that they feel an obligation, wherever that sense of obligation came from, to care for their parents at the expense of their family. And I left out some details, but this person has siblings, and the siblings all chose to live far away from mom and dad. And I was like, that's probably why they live far away from mom and dad, because mom and dad are takers. They take, take, take. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day, and I had a coaching client, and they how did they say it? That their husband felt like he was a giver because he puts food on their table. I want you to hear that. Their husband felt like he was very generous and very giving because he puts food on their table. And when they want something nice, they want a new outfit or something, he'll take them to the store to get it. And I'm like, you're a stay-at-home mom. Your role should be that when you need something, he takes you to go get it, or he gives you the money to go get it. Your role should be that y'all have a spend plan as a family that allots something to your clothing and your hair and your nails and your groceries and whatever else every month. Now, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something, and I'm going to make sure if my husband's watching this, which I think he's watching sports previews, but just in case, I am not talking about him. When it used to kill me when I was active duty Air Force, I would go to the commissary and the young airmen would be in the commissary shopping with their wife. And the wife would get all the groceries in the thing, and then the young airman would pay it, and then they would go back to work and their wife would go home with the food. And I'm like, I understand that sometimes people who are young don't understand how to spend, plan, and budget, and but he shouldn't be controlling all the money. Okay. Now, when me and my husband go to the store, yes, we go together. It's part of our Sunday. It's our Sunday routine. For 5 years now, I've been retired from the Air Force, and every Sunday that we're both home, we go to the grocery store and we shop together. Okay, and he pays for it, and that's out of our household budget, right? But so I don't want you to think that it's the same thing. But there's a difference between I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to be controlling. Okay, and so when I look at this person, I'm like, this person probably has parents that have been very self-centered and very controlling. And they might think that they're giving, just like that young airman might think that he is giving, because look at how generous he is buying all the groceries for the family. Uh, I'm sorry, when you're a partnership, you're supposed to be partners. Okay. And so the sad part, the reason I bring that up is because sometimes you can't tell somebody they're not generous. And I'm like, generous? Y'all don't ever host anybody. Y'all don't donate to anything. Y'all don't do any of these things. And that was one of the things that she was coming to me for because she wanted to, she used to do those things before she got married and now they didn't do any of them. And so when this young lady that asked the question about moving, I could absolutely see them going, her going and confronting her parents about, I did all the sacrifice for you and you're not even willing to help me with my newborn. I could see that. The parents turning it around on them. Well, we're so generous and we're so giving. We allowed you to come back here and be by us and come to dinner once a month, in our mature fixed income years, right? And so you have to be very careful for that. But when I read this, it makes me so sad because if you had consulted me before you went, I would have asked some serious questions, and I'll get to those questions in a second. I want to answer the question at hand, which is should I risk losing my inheritance and leave? And so what I'm taking by that is this person could go back to where they came from, where they have a support system who can help them with the baby, but they moved out to where they don't have anybody and they don't have anybody to support them with the baby, and their parents aren't being supportive. And so I mean, do I understand the thought about I'm going to be a grandparent and my life is not wrapped up with my grandkids? My life is not being free babysitting for you for the next 10 years. Like I get that. I totally get that. And I forgot I told him. Philip reminded me the other day, a couple months ago actually. He said, don't forget, you said that you would give me at least 1 month or 1 weekend a month of childcare, of watching my baby if I have kids. And I was like, I forgot I said that, but if you say I said that, I'll try to remember that. But look, we're not trying to have no grandkids before we have some degrees. I ain't trying to be no grandmother yet. I know I'm old enough, but I'm not trying to do that yet. Um, but he said, I said, I really said that to you. He said, yeah, you said, because I'm not going to be one of those grandmas sitting around the house with nothing to do. I'm going to have stuff to do. So I must have said this to him when I had left his father and before I remarried. But once you graduate from high school, I got plans. I got a life to live. So apparently, I told her I'm gonna be out doing life. But so I get that part of it. But in a situation where you are feeling, this is how this person writes. When I read what they wrote, it sounds like they're feeling like I better not leave or I'll be cut out of the will. That feeling right there, if any of that is based in any conversations that you have actually had with your parents and not just your own personal fear, that is manipulation. Now, let me tell you something about wills. You could do everything that your parents want done, and they could still not have you in the will. And you say, oh, well, that's not fair. No, it's not fair, but that's usually what happens. I'm telling you, as a financial planner, people don't come to me like, oh my goodness, my mom cut my sister out of the will, and my sister gave up everything to take care of my mom, and I really want to give her something. Can I do that? I don't get that question. I get my kids, my siblings cut me out and they forced mom's hand and somehow she left everything to them instead of me. And what do I do now? I was supposed to get the business. I was supposed to get the car. Okay. You have to make decisions based on what's best for your family. Now I can understand if the inheritance is a couple $1 million that you would feel like you really, really don't want to get cut out of that. But guess what? I you have no control over that. I would rather you go somewhere where you're going to have support rearing that precious little one, where you have friends who can help with daycare and babysitting. And when you just are your wits end and you need a break because you can't handle crying not one more minute, and the baby done spit up all over the car seat 7 days out of a week. So you've had to wash that thing 7 weeks in a row. And if y'all have never washed a car seat that has been spit up in, let me tell you, it is a whole ordeal and a nasty one too. And so if from my perspective as a financial planner, the best thing you can do for your finances is take care of your family. And the best thing you can do for taking care of your family is be where you are loved, respected, and you have support. And if there is a place like that that exists, and I'm not just talking about made up, but a place like that that exists, then I personally say, forget the inheritance, go be where you can have a healthy family unit. Now, let me address something I just mentioned there. I said if that place actually exists. There are a lot of us who discover, especially military families, when you move away, your group of friends, they're going to be on with you on Facebook, they're going to be with you on Insta, they're going to be on a group chat, you're going to be interacting every day, every day, every day, every day. But their life has moved in a different direction since you moved. So you have to make sure before you uproot again that you are actually moving to a situation that is going to benefit you. And to do that, I recommend a series of visits back home so you can ascertain whether or not these friends are still friends. Because I have had that happen twice now where I have moved back to a place where I used to live. Twice the military had sent me back somewhere where I lived before, and I had a great group and a great friendship with the people that were there. And then I went away, and then 5, 7, 10 years later, I came back, and those relationships were never the same. So I'm not saying that to cast judgment on the person who asked the question. I'm just saying the realities of friendships as we age, you want to make sure first before you uproot and go. But don't stay somewhere where you think that you don't have any support, you don't have any friends, you haven't been able to fit into the local community just because your parents have an inheritance. Okay? Let me tell you something about inheritances. Inheritances come and go. I have found it interesting the number of times that I have been in and out of my mom's will. And usually it's something like, I'm leaving all the grandkids something, but you can take care of yourself, so I'm not leaving you anything. And then when I got a divorce, I was back in the will for a little bit, and then I pulled myself out of that. I got myself out of that situation. I was $800,000 in debt at the time. I really appreciated it, but I'm so sad because I was so used to being told I wasn't in the will. So my mom's trying to tell me about the will, and I'm in the back seat of the car, like, I just got off the airplane. Why is she telling me this? And she's like, the reason I'm telling you this is because we put you in the will. And I was like, oh, I've been hearing for I've been hearing for 10 years. I'm not in there. I felt bad. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I was just tired. And sometimes like if you're a parent and you have multiple kids, you may not realize this. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it has to do with my story that I just told to reinforce what we're talking about. If you have multiple kids, you might not realize this, but a lot of times parents talk about one kid more than everybody else, and that kid can like do no wrong. And even when they do wrong, it's not, oh, this kid did me so wrong. It's this kid did me so wrong. What a great parent I was. Oh, boy, they put me through, but I just love them. It's never, you were such a great kid. So after a while, you can get tired of hearing about that stuff, and I try really hard because I had that experience in my life. I try really hard not to do that to my kids, okay? Because I know what it feels like to be like, every time we have this will conversation, I'm not in it. Why do I care? I don't care. If I'm not in it, I don't care. I just care that you're taken care of. You got provisions, you've got retirement, you got the things you need so that you are healthy and you've got provision for when you're not healthy. That's all I care about that you're taken care of. I don't care what happens after that. I love to be in the inheritance. I would love to have some property handed down to me. I would love to have some money handed down to me, but if you're gonna keep telling me I'm not in it, I don't care. And so I was in it for a little while, then I wasn't. Then I think I was in it briefly for another little while, and then I wasn't. And then I was, it's just back and forth and back and forth. And there are other people in my life who dangled an inheritance, and they always find a reason. They always found a reason for that to not materialize. Okay. And there's not that many, but I just find it interesting for someone who grew up poor, there are several influential family members, parental figures who could have left us seven figures or more that chose not to. And I'm not entitled to any of the inheritance, and neither is the young lady here, not entitled to any of that. But I just find it interesting that like the money goes to whoever it goes to. You cannot control that. What you can control is what you do with your money. Now let me tell you something. You're stressed out about your parents not helping. You got to pay more for childcare because you don't have good friends there yet who can help you out when you need some help, or you don't trust anybody with your newborn because they're not kin, and now you're exasperated and burnt out and you don't have any time to take out for yourself. That is bad for your financial future. Because when we're burnt out, when we're overwhelmed, when we're disappointed, when we're miserable, when we feel slighted, when we feel disrespected, we make bad financial decisions. That's why so much of what I do as a financial planner and financial coach has nothing to do with money. That's why so much of my working with a client is more about uncovering the deeper issues. Now, I'm not a counselor licensed to help you solve the traumas and stuff, but if we can get down to what's the trauma underneath your money problems, you can take that to the counselor and be like, I need to work on this, and it will help your financial future. So I would say to this person, don't worry about the inheritance, because if your parents are doing you like this now, you're probably not going to give you nothing anyway, or they're probably not going to give you anything. Let me use my proper English. They're probably not going to give you anything anyway. And this is another interesting thing I have found with people. When you stand up for yourself and you assert yourself and you draw your own boundaries around your life and you say, this is the life I want to live. And if you're not going to fit in this life, then you can be on the periphery of my life. When you do that, more people respect you. In fact, I bet these parents would respect them more for going back to where they have support instead of always being manipulated by the inheritance. Not a guarantee that they'll get it, but it'll be a lot better for them and their family, and ultimately for the health and financial future of that newborn. All right. Ooh, this has been fun, y'all. I hope y'all have been enjoying this as much as I have. I got one more question. I have one more question that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to talk to you about my Black History Month spotlight, which is Girl Trek, the shirt that I'm wearing today. I really hope my drinking doesn't come out too loud. The camera. Okay. So, all right. Our last question for today, and this is one where if you've been with me for a couple years, I have changed my mind and my teaching on this over the years. Okay. So, um, wait. Oh, okay. What I forgot to do is remind everybody that this is our live recording for the Ladies of Wealth podcast. We do these live recordings every Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, and we invite you to come in and ask your money questions. And then we we split up the live recording into the podcasts. And I know if you go out there right now, I know we got a lot of stuff missing. We had some copyright issues, and I thought we resolved them, but we didn't. And then they came up again. I thought we did, but we didn't. And so now y'all, my YouTube channel is not making any money, and I am not happy about it. I am on a probation, and I am not happy about it. So we had some things we had to address. Okay. But we do the recordings on Thursday nights, and we encourage you to do that live. If you can't make it live, it gets broken up and eventually becomes part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast. And so if you just joined us, we just talked the last segment. We just talked the last segment for the last show. That segment will be its own show. We just talked about someone who gave up everything to care for their parents, but the parents don't want to help with the newborn baby. So if that's something you missed, go back and catch the last episode so you can get that. Today we're going to be talking about I gave up everything. Oh no, I just did that one. Uh, okay, today we're going to be talking about college funding. I'm confused about college funding. What's the difference between a 529 plan, prepaid plan, pre pre blah? Okay, I'm confused. Wait, I'm confused about college funding. What's the difference between a 529 plan, a prepaid plan, I cannot say this today. All right, y'all. College funding. You got 529 plans. You got prepaid plans. You got Coverdells. Okay. You got other ways to give money to your kids and save money for your kids. Okay. You've also got, they didn't ask about this, but there's also the uniform gift to minors. And I forget there's another version of that uniform transfer. There's one that's a TA and one that's a GA. I know I'm a financial planner. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't, because I don't really recommend those. Okay. Not for the population I tend to serve. Okay. I tend to serve a lower income population, and there are more mo better. tax advantage ways to handle that. Okay, there's better ways to handle that for the populations that I serve, especially if that parent has not already had a history and a legacy of teaching that child how to manage money. Because with the uniform gift to minors, or either one of those two plans, when that child hits a certain age, you got no control over that thing anymore. And I'm gonna be upfront with y'all. I didn't save all this money to have you spend it away partying. Okay. And how many of us have got family members that have sold away inheritances for pennies on the dollar because they wanted to go party with their friends, or because they didn't know how to handle money, or they didn't know the value of money? Okay. So this person did not ask about that. I'm just gonna mention that real quick. Uh, the reason certain people use the uniform gift to minors, is because there's no limits. There's no limits on how much you can put in there. The only thing is, and there's no limits on what you can do with it. So if your kid doesn't go to college, well, or the kid doesn't go to trade school, because it does work for trade schools well. If your kid doesn't go to college or trade school, then it's okay. You can use it for anything. It's a gift to them. It's theirs, which means when they hit the right age, depending on the market you're in and depending on their status and your status and filing, whether you claim them still as a or not, there's some tax thingies in there. Uh, Depending on all of that stuff, they turn 18, that money becomes theirs. Or if they're still under your, I forget what the technical term is, but if they're still under your umbrella for taxes and stuff, it could be as up to 25, but still, at 25, it's there. So you don't saved $100,000 because you thought, oh, I'm going to use this esoteric thing. Well, actually, I mean, let me rephrase that. If you can save two or $300,000 for your kid in one of these, you don't need the rest of the advice I'm about to give. If you can do that, go ahead and do that. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't give a 25-year-old that much money. You might do better to put it in a trust or something. Okay, but that's not what this person asked about. They asked about prepaid plans versus 529s versus Coverdells. Okay, and those of you who've been with me for, I'd say maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Uh-oh, my little one's probably doing something over there. Um, I changed my mind about the Coverdale because I found out that there were some unique things you could do with a Coverdale. Okay. And recently, I have changed my mind about prepaid tuition. I used to not like prepaid tuition plans at all. Okay. So I'm going to give you what these three are: the prepaid, the Coverdale, and the 529. And then we're going to talk about which situations is best for which plan and which family. Okay. Prepaid tuition plan is exactly what it sounds like. You are basically prepaying the tuition for this student so that when the student goes to school, your costs are locked in. Now, when did I retire? I retired in 2020, so it was about a year or two before that. I looked in my account for my son, my 529 for my oldest son. I was nearly in tears. I had come from being $845,000 in debt to having enough money to cover the cost of his education at at his school, okay, or at any of the, well, not, I don't think LSU, but whatever the state schools were in Louisiana at that time, like 2019, 2018, whatever the state funding was, whatever the state tuition was for most of the schools he might have gone to. And I mean, it was just like tears, like, oh my goodness, if you can't heal from this car accident, you can afford to retire because you got money to send your son to college. Yay. Okay. And uh, that was it. By the time he graduated in 2024, that amount that was saved would barely cost 2 years of in-state tuition. The costs have exponentially grown. Well, depending on how you see it on the thing, exponentially grown. Okay. Exponentially grown. And so I used to not want prepaid tuition because my thing was you could invest that money in a 529 plan. And then if that child didn't go to school, you could roll it over to another child's plan. Okay. Or you could use it for yourself to go to school. Well, now, depending on your situation and depending on your school, you might want a prepaid plan. A prepaid plan is good for people where you know that your child either A is going to go to college, and B, you know what school they're going to go to. Like y'all have a long legacy of going to A&M. and you're pretty sure that your child's gonna go to A&M. I was about to say A&T, Aggie Pride. Uh, y- y- well, then maybe you go ahead and do that. But my kids, they're non-conformable. The, they will conform when they have to, but when mama pushes something, they resist. And so if mama was to have pushed a particular school, they would resist. Okay. That's just how my kids are. And you have to know the personality of your child. And my son, my oldest, originally wanted to go for mechanical engineering because he wanted to design race car engines. But he was like, after a year of this and all this math and all this theory, he's like, I really just want to go turn wrenches. And so now he's in a trade school. And it's funny because he's in the program. He's about a third of the way done. And he's like, I don't think the math is so bad. He's like, I really love this, but I don't think I want to do this every day for the rest of my life. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. So thankfully, his associates there can transfer into a bachelor's back at the school where he was, which is a blessing. That always doesn't always happen. But like, I would never have bought a prepaid tuition plan, even though I know how the costs have skyrocketed. Okay. And even though people are lobbying for the government to do something about it, it's just not it's just not something you can depend on. You can't depend on the government to help you. You have got to help yourself. Okay. And so, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this kind of skyrocketing happened. But if you think back in the day when everybody couldn't go to college the way everybody could go now. And they changed some of the regulations and they changed some of the rules and the laws and the blah 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 that allows people to get admitted here and there. Don't you see there's a huge rise in privatized loans? Student loans are such a big business now, and those student loans are not bankruptable. Okay. And so we have to be very careful about those things. And if you know that that your child is going to go to college or a particular trade school, if you know that and you want to do a prepaid tuition, I'm not going to be mad at you as a financial planner because I don't know where that exponential growth in costs is going to stop. I know it wouldn't have been a good fit for my family. Okay. So the next one I want to talk to is the Coverdell Education Savings Account. The Coverdell, it's you can only put $2,000 a year into it, and that's per student. So if I put in 1,000 and my mom put in 1,000 and Cubby's uncle put in no, no, no. If I put in 1,000 and my mom put in 1,000, nobody else can put any more money in there for Cubby. And they can't open up another Coverdale for Cubby. That's it. You get 2,000 a year. So for a long time, I was like, no, thank you. We are not doing Coverdales because we need to put more money away than that if we're going to have a hope of paying for college. Okay. Because, I came from a background where if I didn't have money to go for college, if I didn't get accepted to the Air Force Academy, I wasn't going to college. I got accepted to the Air Force Academy. I got accepted to the SUNY schools like SUNY Plattsburgh, SUNY Potsdam. I got accepted into Syracuse University, which is where I actually really wanted to go. It's so crazy. If I'd have gone to Syracuse University, to the business school that I got accepted to, Dr. Boyce Watkins would have been my professor. Ah, I really wanted to do that, but the Air Force Academy was a 4-year scholarship, a full ride scholarship, and Syracuse University gave me. This was in 1993, y'all, $20,000. That was a lot of money scholarship in 1993, but it was only 1 year with the option to renew. And while everybody was telling me, don't worry, they just automatically renew it as long as you keep your grades up, I was like, guaranteed full ride job and a job upon graduation in the military, which I was familiar being a military brat, versus $20,000 for the first year, which covered everything for the first year, but no guarantees for the rest of it. No. I actually did get full rides from ROTC for math, but I didn't want to do math. I wanted to do physics. I know physics is math, but physics is cool math. Math is boring math. Physics is cool math. Okay. If you're a mathematician, please don't hate me, but that's just how I felt. Not doing either one. Not doing either one of them now. Like I'm doing finance. Finance is emotions math, right? So, so in my world, when I first started out as a financial planner and a financial coach, in my world, Coverdale was not enough because I was going to need money to allow my child to go anywhere he wanted to go, and $2,000 a year is wasn't going to cut it. Okay. Now, there are some really cool things that I now recommend Coverdell to people with specific skill sets. And not only because you can use it for more things and you can use the 529 plan for, which we'll talk about in a second. One of the things you can do with a Coverdell is you can use it for private school uh, before they go to college. And so that's the limitation that your 529 plans have. Is those are only used for college or post, what do they call that? Post-secondary education, where your college or trade school or something like that. Okay. The Coverdell, if I wanted to send my son to a private high school, I could use Coverdell funds for it. You're like, well, JJ, let me tell you something. At $2,000 a year max, you are probably not sending your son to private school. Don't I know it, y'all? When we were in Louisiana, my oldest, his private school was 970 something a month, and that was a year-round plan. I think you skipped 1 month. That was a year-round plan paying for that school on top of property tax, on top of all the other things. But in that instance where I was, it was worth it for him to have access to that more intense education. Okay. And so the thing is about the Coverdale that causes me to change my mind a couple years ago about this is that you can have what's called a self-directed Coverdale. You can't have a self-directed 529. 529 plans are run through the state. Pre-planned prepaid plans are run through either the state or sometimes the college. I would recommend one run through the state if you can still find one. I shouldn't say it like that. I honestly did not look that up before I started here. I haven't heard much about them in so long that I'm not even sure most of those exist, but I know they do at the college level. But if you could get one that guarantees you at the state level, I think that would be a broader application to be better. But the thing about a Coverdell is you can do a self-directed Coverdell. So you can put $2,000 a month in there, or $2,000 a year in there, and by the time your child is 10, right? Now you've got $20,000. And you know what you can do in a self-directed Coverdell? You can invest in real estate. And guess what's so cool about investing in real estate in one of these self-directed accounts? My self-directed IRA can partner with my son's self-directed Coverdale, and they can combine on a real estate flip. Now, even though my son's Coverdale might only contribute 2,000 this year, and my self-directed IRA might cover 100,000, and they go and do a $102,000 flip, we can set up the operating agreement such that my son's Coverdale gets all the profit beyond replenishing my IRA. Or if I got it like that, which I don't yet, but if I got it like that, I can set it up that my son's Coverdale gets all the profit or 95% of the profit or whatever it is. And so you can effectively, if you do solid research, I mean, I want to see if I can I draw this out? I don't think I need to draw it out. He put his Coverdale puts in $2,000. My IRA puts in $100,000. They go do $102,000 flip and they sell that property for $250,000. Okay. So 102 from 250, okay, is 148. Okay. Be with me on the math there. It's math in public. I might mess it up. You know, I was a scientist for years, but sometimes I mess up math in public. But $148,000. And I can stipulate that my IRA, according to the agreement, my IRA is going to get 10% of the profits and his Coverdale is going to get 90% of the profits. Now I'm making the math in public hard because that what that means is my IRA is going to get $14,000, $14,200, and my son's Coverdale is going to get the rest. So real quick, okay, 148 minus 14. I gotta have to do that on paper. Sorry. 148, 148 thousand. Okay, so 148 minus 14, 2 is 800, 3, 3, 1. It's $133,000 and $133,800. $133,800. I took that 2,000 from the Coverdale and I did one flip, one very well placed flip. Most of us aren't going to get that kind of profit, and I turned it into over $100,000. Can you send your kids to school off of one flip per month that makes, or one flip per year that makes 130 something thousand dollars? Mm-hmm. Yes, you can. Now, Am I going to recommend that for everybody? Of course not. You know why? Because all of us don't have the skill set to do one flip a month. We don't all have the team, I mean, a year. We don't have the team to do $100,000 in flip profits in a year. We don't have the skill set. We don't have a lot of things. Most of the people that come to me, they're trying to get out of debt. They're trying to get into their wealth. They're trying to get there. Now, I get some, I do have a couple of celebrity clients, and they're already there. And then we teach them this strategy, right? But if you know how to evaluate a property and you know how to go after properties that have big upswing and big profit, you can put your child to school on $2,000 a year plus whatever you've got in your self-directed IRA. And that's when the Coverdell makes the most sense for me. Doesn't mean it doesn't make sense in other use cases, but for the people that are in my list, most of the time we need more money, not more headaches. Okay. And so I like that. $133,800. You can go to private school on that pretty easy, can't you? Now, one thing that you do have to watch out for with the Coverdell is the money has to be used by 30, by age 30. The kid's age 30. Okay. The last one I'm going to cover is the 529 plan. And this is one where a lot of us are more familiar with. It's the traditional college savings plan. And the thing about the college savings plan is that you've got high contribution limits. How do I want to say that? There's no limit to what you can put in. However, if you hit a certain amount, you trigger the gift tax provisions and you might be obligated to gift tax later. Now, people get real scared about gift tax, but for most of us, gift tax isn't even going to come into play in our lifetime because we're not going to give enough gifts to hit the threshold where we actually have to pay the tax. We accrue the tax. The IRS says, you paid your son $30,000 this year and your gift tax. So now you've incurred this much amount of gift tax. Okay. But you don't always have to pay it. That's the thing. And we get so scared of stuff because we don't understand it. So this is definitely something, if you're thinking about doing this and you got it like that, this is something I definitely recommend talking with a tax advisor because each spouse can give gifts to their children. Okay. Each spouse can get gifts to their children. Let me see what the rules are for 2026. Let me see if they've come out with that rules yet. Gift tax. I make sure I've got the amounts right. Um, Yeah, gift tax exclusion 2026. I think it's up to, oh, okay. I would have been wrong. I thought it was 20. It's actually 19,000 now. Okay. It did not change for 2026. So it's $19,000. Okay. So each each parent can give their child $19,000 before they incur the gift tax. And if you give more, you may not necessarily have to pay that gift tax the year that you give the money. It may not accrue to be enough to trip the IRS, we want our money wire until you die. Okay. Unless you really, really given a lot of gifts. Okay. And so, I mean, like we're talking millions. Okay. And very few, very few of us on here are doing that. Okay. Um, I wish we were though. Oh yeah, I wish we were. But think about that. $19,000. One and then 529 you can front load up to 5 years. So I can do one, 19, 19, 19, 19, 19. Ooh, so that is $195,000 that I could put. I mean, no. I'm sorry. Math in public. That is $95,000. I'm still thinking about that house example. Like I made a really juicy example. I'm like, man, I wish I could do that in real life. I'm not that good of a flipper yet. I, I'd have to do about 3 or 4 homes to get that price where especially out where I live, where the prices being what they are. Anyway, let me say that again. Okay, so I could give my son $19,000 a year before I trip the gift tax in 2026. That's the gift tax numbers for 2026. It has not changed for 2025. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So that is $95,000 that I could transfer to my son into his 529 plan and not incur any gift tax obligation. And then my husband can do 20 or $19,000 a year. That's another $95,000. So between the two of us, We don't got it like that, y'all. Most of our holdings are things we can't reach just yet. Okay, so don't come after me for no money. I'm just giving you an example. All right, that's $190,000 we could plop into that account, or that's $190,000 that grandma and grandpa could plop into that account. And you know what you can do with $190,000 plopped into a 529 account when baby is born? You know what you can do in 18 years when baby goes to college? You can send them to just about any college you want. Just about any college you want. Yes, prices are going to go crazy. They've been going crazy, but I don't think they're going to go that crazy that you can't keep up with that. Okay. So, in my case with my oldest, we were putting in, we were putting in about 50 or so dollars a month, 50 or so dollars a month, and the account was like 40,000, 45,000 when I retired from the Air Force. Okay. So not quite the same thing. So this is why I highly, highly recommend that if you have a child, uh, that you want to set up a 529 plan, I highly recommend, instead of Christmas gifts and all stuff, especially if they're a baby. Y'all know babies don't need all that junk that we be buying for them. Okay. Especially if they're a baby, that you convince aunties, uncles, grandparents, whoever, to put that money into their 529 plan. Now, there's another interesting thing about 529 plans. Okay. The 529 plan, they have recently passed a new tax law that says if you don't spend the money, it can be transitioned to retirement funds. Ooh, y'all, that's an amazing new benefit. Okay. It's an amazing new benefit. Okay. And so the reason, so you might say, well, why does the government want to encourage people to do this 529 plan? Because people are looking for any way they can do to get out of paying taxes. And when you put the money into the 529 plan, you got to pay taxes on it. The same way with the Roth. Why did the government come out with a Roth IRA? Because you pay taxes on the money you put into the Roth. You don't pay taxes on the money you take out of the Roth, and you don't pay taxes on the money you take out of the 529 as long as it's for legit educational purposes. But you do have to pay taxes when you get into that thing. And so if they can encourage you to stop putting money in tax evasion, in tax deductible. What is the word I'm looking for? I need an accountant to help me out here. If you can choose to put money in a savings vehicles where you don't have to pay tax on that money, like your 401ks, you put money in your 401k, you don't have to pay tax on that money. Okay. Or you could choose to put it in a Roth IRA. You pay tax on that money, you just don't pay tax later. With a traditional IRA or a traditional Roth, I mean, with a traditional IRA or a traditional uh, 401k or something like that, you don't pay taxes on the money you put in there. You can sock away a lot of cash without having to be taxed on it right now. But when you pull that money out, you got to pay taxes on the money you pull out. Well, the government has every vested interest in getting money from you right now. So they are making it easy and easy and easy for you to save money right now and then not have to, because they want the money right now. They need more money right now. They want money right now. And this is why my original mentor, Larry Burkett, this is the reason why my original mentor, Larry Burkett, he did not like it when they came out with the IRA and the self-direct. My goodness, girl, get the terminology together. When they came out with that Roth IRA, he didn't trust it. He's like, you can't trust the government. You better get your tax deduction now. You get a tax deduction now by filling out your regular IRA or your regular 401k. Don't trust that Roth. And now it's like, man, I'm glad. I'm glad. I mean, I wasn't in a position anyway. I was in the military, but once I got able to do the thrift savings plan, I'll tell you what, I did do some traditional thrift savings plan, but then I put everything else in the Roth thrift savings plan. Okay. So yeah, that's something that's very important. Okay. But I want you to understand why the government's doing this, because a lot of times it's very easy to not trust. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to get, 20 years from now and the government's not going to change their mind again. I don't know what the government's going to do. My goodness, nobody could have predicted what the past year was going to be like. Nobody could have predicted that. I mean, Okay, so somebody did write and say that all the things that have happened were things that he wanted to do, but nobody ever thought it was going to actually happen. Okay, and so, I mean, anyway, this is not a political show. I'm just saying. Okay, so we do have some concerns about that. Another thing about 529, you as the person who owns the account, you control where the money goes. That money never becomes the property of the child. That's one of the things that I liked about it, because if my children get to acting crazy, guess who gets their 529 money? Mama, who is a lifelong earner. I mean, lifelong earner. I hope not. Not almost as passive income. Their mama, who is a lifelong learner and loves going to school and loves taking classes and would be happy to spend that money up. And now that they changed the tax code to put that into the IRA, I mean, into your retirement funds, ooh, you better believe. Hey, you don't want to go to college? Okay, you want to fool around and not do what you're supposed to do? Thank you, thank you for your contribution to JJ Conway's retirement. Okay. Seriously though, that's one of the great things about the 529 plan. You can add beneficiaries to the same account. You can put some in, take some out, and you can change it however you want. The person in charge of the account earns the money, and multiple people can have 529 accounts for the same child. So remember, we talked about the Coverdell. You get 2,000 a year, and that's it. So you better coordinate with grandma. If grandma's going to do one, maybe y'all should work together and put all the money in one account so y'all can keep track of that, right? You don't want no tax hit later. You could get away with doing something wrong for a long time, but at the wrong time, the time when you really need that money, you really need some peace in your household. That's when the enemy gets busy. Oh, I see they have a tax problem here. Let's go ahead and get on them for that. Okay. So dot your I's and cross your T's on that. All right. The uniform gift to minors. Hey, you can want to do that. That's fine. But then once that child comes of age, that money is not yours anymore. You have no control over it. Okay. So each one of these things has a different up and a down, and it's important for you to understand what's going to be the best for your personal situation. Okay. Let me see. Did I cover everything on the 529? You have to spend it in certain things. You can't spend it on everything, but more and more things are becoming included. Okay, and I like that. Like more and more things are becoming included. Okay, uh, big one with the 529. 529 plans are not like IRAs or anything else where you can just go to like Vanguard or Chase or Fidelity or something and open up your own account. 529 plans are run through the state. Okay, and a lot of prepaid plans are also run through the state. Okay, 529 plans are run through the state. Depending on the state you live in, you might get a tax deduction by using your state's 529 plan. You might not, in which case you just want to go choose the one that has the best program at the time that you're choosing it, but you might get a tax deduction. So that's the first place you want to look, is you want to look at what concessions and what enticements and what benefits the plan for your state has. So for example, I was a military out of state in the state that when I was in, I was a resident of one state, and then I transitioned to being um, a resident of Florida. Well, Florida doesn't have, um, if you're not if oh, I can't remember if Florida didn't have it. I know PA didn't have income tax if you were military out of state. So it didn't matter to me if I was in their plan or not. Florida, I can't remember if they just didn't have an income tax or if it just because I was military out of state. But either way, I didn't have to pay tax. So none of those state plans was going to help me anyway. So I picked the one with the lowest cost, which is not the one that it is today. The one with the lowest costs and the highest satisfaction rate is not the same as it was 20 years ago when I picked Phillips. Okay. For my little one, we went with the Texas one because the Texas one does give concessions that we thought were important for us being in Texas and most likely not moving from Texas until after Cubby goes to college, because my husband is a Texas educator and his retirement plan is the Texas educator's retirement plan, and we gonna be here for a while. Okay, I, I might travel around, but we basically is gonna be our domicile for a while. So you want to check that out. And my favorite place to check out the different plans is another one of my mentors. mostly from a distance, though. I did get to meet him in person, and I was so lame. I was fangirling so bad, but Clark Howard at Clark.com. He has a really good rundown. They keep it up to date, very much so, on what are the best 529 plans for your situation. And so I encourage you to go out there and pick the best one if that's the plan that meets your needs. Okay. Again, if you're really adept at real estate investing and you know you can take 20,000 and turn it into 40 with a flip, you can take 40,000 and turn it to 80. You can take 100,000 and turn it to 150. If you know you got it like that, you got a system and you know what you're doing, try the Coverdell. You can really maximize your child's funds that way, as long as you make sure it's spent the way it needs to be spent. Okay. Whew, well, that was fun. I hope y'all got a lot out of that. Okay. I hope y'all got a lot out of that. Oh, I love to see people giving me comments that they are enjoying themselves online. I'm really happy you're there. I think it's so hilarious. Uh, we keep we're starting to get haters now on some of the comments, so I can't just blindly click them, which is a shame because it's hard for me to read them in the screen where they pop up. There's such tiny text. But I think I was gonna take them off, and then somebody told me, no, you want to leave the controversial comments too because it helps you with your algorithm or something like that. So I said, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna take it to heart though. But I hope you've enjoyed the lessons tonight. I hope you've enjoyed these recordings. And if you are listening to me live, I do encourage you to still listen to the podcast every once in a while. Wait, this is going to sound bad. You already heard it once, so I want you to hear it a second time. No, that's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say is, if you're listening to if you're listening to me as part of the podcast, we encourage you to join us live. I don't want you to not listen to the podcast because I need you to bump up my podcast ratings, right? And I need you to forward it to some friends and I need you to tell people about it. But one of the things that I most enjoy doing with my subscribers is actually getting to interact with you live. And so that's so much fun. And we are going to eventually get back to where we're doing interviews again. We're already starting to line those interviews up. And when we do that, some of the Thursday night classes aren't going to be ported to the podcast. So you definitely want to participate in both if you're part of the JJ Conway tribe. I don't know what we're going to call that tribe, but we're going to come up with a name for it. All right. That's all I've got for you today. Y'all take care. Oh, all take care. And y'all, blah, 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 blah. Y'all take care and be blessed. Oh, goodness.